Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really interested in the Krays, check out our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London. A direct link for the group is in the YouTube description section. We're a friendly and moderated group which has been running since January 2018. Come and give us a try sometime.
Welcome back again. I was being transferred from Chelmsford Prison in Essex to Albany on the Isle of Wight, which I was quite happy about because it was only a couple of 100 yards from Parkhurst, where the twins were being held. But soon the van was picking up speed towards the city, pulling me away from the warmth of my nostalgia. I got my chance to breathe fresh air when we stopped at a police station for my guards to use the toilet. I stayed in the yard, basking in the exquisite feeling of the hot summer sun and cool breeze on my face and in my hair. I stared up at the sky, marveling at its blueness. I'd seen the sky in prison, of course, but somehow it was different looking at it on the outside. It was only a tiny police station yard, and I was in handcuffs. But for those few minutes, I felt I was in heaven. I could have stayed there all day. But soon we were on the move again, passing through central London and South London suburbs towards the A3. All the way through Surrey and Hampshire I talked little and just stared out of the window, drinking in the beauty of the countryside, thinking, as I had 1,000 times in prison, that you don't know how much you'll miss something until it's taken away from you. Then we were on the ferry and I was transfixed by a kaleidoscope of colour that took my breath away. In prison, I'd been surrounded by dowdy greys and blues month in, month out, but now in front of me were greens and reds and yellows, all bright despite the darkened windows of the van. It was warm and sunny and there was a holiday atmosphere. I took in the men's suits and shirts and watched them drinking beer out of cans. I watched women talking casually and children running around playing. Everyone looked happy. I'd seen smiles on the faces of people in prison, but like the sky, it was different. I wanted to get out of the van, close to the children's laughter, but it was forbidden. So I stayed there, looking out through the dark green glass at the unfamiliar scenes, feeling as though I was from another planet. When we got to Albany, one of the 6 guards unloaded my box of gear, and we waited in a little room for the prison staff to take me to my cell. When the time came, one of them said, "Well, that's it, Charlie. You're here. They'll be giving you something to eat in a minute." And then they all shook my hand, promising to give my regards to all the people who had become my friends in Chelmsford. The Albany staff looked shocked, a Kray brother in the nick, shaking hands and exchanging good-natured pleasantries. They could not be blamed for being surprised. The publicity about the family would have made anyone expect the worst. In my case, they were to discover that the image bore little resemblance to reality. Within a few minutes, my cell was full of people wanting to say hello. I was pleased and was polite, but after a short time, I wanted them to go. I had been in a world of just 9 other inmates for 2 years, and the talk and noise sort of did my brain in. I wanted to be on my own, to shut my eyes and think about the countryside and pretend I was going on holiday. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, they drifted back to their own cells. But one bloke, a Scotsman, hung on, and when the others had gone and we were alone, he started telling me how he had stabbed and killed someone. We were similar, he said. We were both doing 10 years. We were about as similar as Jekyll and Hyde. He loved talking about his violence, thinking I would enjoy it, but it sickened me. Violence always has. He was one of those idiots who have wanted to be in prison all their life. He loved it. But I was doing 10 years for nothing, and all I could think about was getting out. Finally, I could stand him no more and told him to go. Alone that night, I thought back over my day. It had been an enjoyable trip. It had done me good, put me in a better frame of mind. I lay on my bed and brought the colors of those holiday makers into focus, filling my head with the laughing faces of those happy children. Oh yes, over the wall the world does exist, I thought, my eyes full. I'd seen it. For a while, Ronnie had been alone in Parkhurst on the Isle of Wight. But Reggie was moved from Long Lartin jail in Leicester to calm him down. Ronnie has been taking 4 different tablets every day since his breakdown in the 50s. He understands that they keep his paranoia and uncontrollable temper at bay and insists he has the prescribed dosage 4 times a day. One day in Parkhurst, a new officer in charge of the high security wing chose not to understand Ronnie's problem. When Ronnie went into the office and asked for one of his tablets, the new man was difficult. He was on his own, in the middle of a shift change, he said, and Ronnie's request would have to wait. Ronnie, who knew his body's danger signals well, told him the matter couldn't wait. He was due a tablet now, and he had to have it. The officer checked his records. Yes, he agreed. Ronnie was right. 4 tablets a day, and one was due now. If he had simply taken out the appropriate pill and handed it to Ronnie, all would have been well. As it was, the officer seemed anxious to prove a point. "I'm afraid I can't give you the tablet," he said. "Why's that?" asked Ronnie. "Because I don't know which one you're supposed to have right now." "It must say which one in my records," said Ronnie. The officer shook his head. "It doesn't. Don't give me that. You'll have to wait until my relief comes back. I'm telling you, I need to take that tablet. I know I have to have it." "You'll have to wait till the other officer comes back," said the new man, and he added cockily, "and I wouldn't bank on him giving you a tablet anyway." Whether it was the bloke's arrogant attitude or the urgent need for that tranquilizing tablet, I don't know. But Ronnie snapped, as anyone who understood him would have expected. He felled the unsuspecting officer with a right hook, then picked him up and vented his anger and frustration in a severe beating. Ronnie's polite request for a tablet landed him in the choky block for 56 days, with a diet of bread and water on and off for 15 days. When he came back to the maximum security wing, he was very disturbed. Bobby Welch, one of the great train robbers, was standing at the top of the stairs and said something. Ronnie told him to get out of the way, then picked up a chair and proceeded to smash everything he could see: lights, tables, other chairs, and the glass on the inside of the barred windows. When his frenzied moment of madness was over, he turned to watching prison officers and said, "You better take me to the choky block again." I heard the story from Welch when he was transferred from the security wing at Albany. He said it was awful. He couldn't believe what they had done to Ronnie. Obviously, someone did. For Reggie was quickly brought down from Long Lartin and asked to tell Ronnie he would be allowed out of the block the next day if he promised to behave himself. It did the trick. Ronnie got it all off his chest and said he'd had enough of the screws treating him badly. He knew he needed tablets to keep him calm. Perhaps next time they would believe him. I had come to terms with being robbed of my freedom, but I was becoming more and more bitter about being on the A book and all the stringent security that went with it to be regarded as a constant threat. Someone to be watched 24 hours a day is bad enough when you've done something to deserve it. When you have done nothing and are non-violent and easygoing, it is terrible and impossible to accept. What made it worse for me was that all the prison officers could not understand why I was on it in the first place. My case kept coming up, of course, but I was always turned down. Someone, somewhere very high up, had clearly made a decision about me. My name was Kray, and that was that. The attitude of Home Office officials did not help my mental state either. After 7 months at Albany, I'd served a total of 3.5 years, qualifying for parole. I was taken upstairs to a cell where a young man in his middle to late 20s was sitting at a desk ready to interview me. There was a young woman there too. I sat down and he said, "Kray?" "Yes," I replied. 10 years, he said. "Well, you aren't going to get parole, you know." "Oh, I'm not," I said, failing to keep the hard-edged, sarcastic tone out of my voice. "And who are you to judge that?" He said nothing, just looked at me. "Why are you wasting my time bringing me up here for an interview if the decision's already been made?" I said. "You give all the sex cases, all the perverts who are a real danger, parole. But normal people don't get it." Before he could say anything, I went on. "Anyway, if the decision has been made in my case, I don't see any point in talking to you." And I got up and walked out. I was seething. All right, it was my first interview for parole, and I didn't expect to get it. But why build me up, then put the knife in before I'd been asked one question? Later, the chief prison officer said he would try to get me another interview, but I told him not to bother. It would be exactly the same, and I didn't need the mental strain of false hope. A few weeks later, I was given the job of helping an officer with the inmates' workshop timesheets. When we were on our own, he said, "I wish you weren't on the A book. I could give you this job. It would be a bit of extra money for you. You could work up to being in charge of the workshop." He paused and grinned. We could have a coffee together and a bit of the wife's cake. In the outside world, that would be nothing. But after 3.5 years in prison on the A book, it seemed everything. I could think of nothing I'd like better than to sit down with a nice bloke and share some of his wife's cake over a coffee, without a camera watching my every movement. That would be lovely, was all I said. He said he would have a word with someone, because there was no logic in keeping me on the A book. I didn't hold my breath, which is just as well because I didn't hear anything for about 12 months. Then one day, the maximum security wing's prison officer called out, "Charlie, I want to talk to you." I walked over, wondering what stroke they'd pulled now. But he was grinning. Maybe he'd picked a winner and won a few quid. "Charlie," he beamed, "you're off the A list. I've got the papers. You're a normal prisoner." He shook my hand. "I'm so pleased," he said. I was delighted, of course I was, and relieved, but I couldn't resist a sarcastic jibe. "Thank you," I said. "But wonder if you can tell me how the Home Office can decide overnight that I'm no longer a threat to society when I'm no different from when I came in." The PO, I must admit, was sympathetic and understanding. "Don't ask me, Charlie. They make the decisions." Perhaps the workshop officer had put in a good word, for within a couple of weeks I got the job in there working out the timesheets. I did them every Friday, and I felt amazing. It sounds so little, so unimportant and menial, but it was a huge triumph in my life. No longer did I have to go to work with someone escorting me, opening and locking doors all the time. I was still an inmate, deprived of my liberty, and I was only halfway through my sentence. But for the first time, I felt normal, a member of the human race, if still an imprisoned one. Now I began to enjoy my visits. It was a long haul from London, involving trains, boats and taxis, and I was grateful to my parents, Dolly and the kids, for making the effort. Those 2 hours every fortnight were a highlight of my existence, and I treasured them. Sadly, though, my cell always seemed lonelier than ever after I'd said my goodbyes, and was sitting there thinking over what had been said. After one particular visit by Dolly and Nancy, I was feeling more depressed than ever when I heard some news that sent me into a wild panic. An Isle of Wight ferry had overturned outside Portsmouth Harbour. A TV news report said that a woman and a little girl were among those missing. My world seemed to stop. The time of the tragedy fitted in with when Dolly and Nancy would have been on board. I was inconsolable, convinced they had drowned, and it was all my fault for being the reason for their visit. I begged the prison authorities to make inquiries to find out if that woman and little girl were Dolly and Nancy. Things had not been perfect with Dolly and me, and yes, I had been thinking of leaving her to live with another woman. But in times of extreme crisis, you push these things to the back of your mind. She was still my wife, and we had had some marvelous times together, and she was the mother of my lovely children. I couldn't bear the thought of her and my darling Nancy ending their lives so horribly. I waited and hoped and prayed. Then finally, hours later, someone came and told me that Dolly and Nancy were safe. They had not been on that fateful ferry. They had missed it. Just. I thanked the prison officer for telling me and added, "Thank God." I couldn't trust myself to say more. The feeling of relief was so exquisitely warm and spine-tingling that it coursed through my entire body and tightened in my throat, leaving me choked with emotion. Not all the people who came to see us were family and friends. We had visits from an American judge and even half a dozen monks. The judge was traveling all over Europe inspecting the jails, and when he visited Albany, he asked to speak to me. Of course, I was delighted to talk to someone like that and was introduced to him in a little room the authorities made available. He was in his late 50s and informally dressed in a lounge suit. He arranged 2 cups of tea, and we started talking. At first, I felt a little strange talking to a judge, but after a while I relaxed and started to enjoy telling him what life was like for me in prison. He asked about my case, and I explained that I was serving a sentence for something I didn't do. I don't know whether he believed me, because prisons are full of people who claim they are innocent, but he seemed genuinely interested and sympathetic. He echoed my own thoughts when he said that the laws in Britain are antiquated. They can say one thing and mean another, and can be bent and twisted by clever lawyers to suit their case. In America, the judge was quick to point out the laws are not so wishy-washy. They are black and white, and it is clear what is meant. I didn't want to make a big thing of my case, but since he asked me about it, I went into some detail. He listened, then said that if I'd been in America, I could have pleaded the Fifth Amendment. I could have refused to give evidence against the twins because I did not want to implicate myself. I amused the judge when I told him that the conversation we were having could not happen with a British judge. They were not living in the real world, I said, and I made him laugh when I recounted the story of a judge who made the headlines by asking in the middle of a major high court case, "Who are these Beatles?" After we'd talked for an hour or so, the American thanked me for agreeing to see him, but I said it had been my pleasure. Apart from being highly intelligent, the judge's views were refreshingly democratic, and his opinions had had a striking effect on me. I went back to my cell, feeling pleasantly high on having had a conversation of real substance with a humane gentleman who felt genuine compassion for people who had fallen foul of the law. The judge left the prison that day, but the monks who came to visit stayed a week to see what it was like to be a prisoner. They ate the same food as we did and slept in 2 cells on opposite sides of the wing. I had a chat with one of them, a charming young man in his middle 20s, and told him I admired him for what he was doing. "At least you know how we feel," I said. "Yes," he replied, "but only up to a point." I looked puzzled. If I wake up at 2 in the morning and decide I don't like being caged anymore, all I have to do is ring a bell and ask to be let out. You can't do that. I smiled. How right he was. I wondered later whether anyone thought of searching the monks when they came in. I decided that someone probably did. No one is trusted in jail. They would probably frisk the Archbishop of Canterbury. Thank you for listening. I hope you are enjoying hearing my story, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section.